house was normal. What happened inside was not from the outside. The house gave nothing away. It stood quietly on a suburban street where mornings began with lawn sprinklers and evenings ended with porch lights flicking on in unison. V-shading, white window frames, a driveway that could fit 2 cars comfortably. Nothing about it suggested danger, tragedy, or fear. Neighbors passed it every day without a second glance. Kids rode their bikes past it. Delivery drivers dropped packages at the door. If you asked anyone what they thought about the house, most wouldn't even remember it. That was the most unsettling part. Evil, when it arrived, didn't announce itself. It blended in. The family inside appeared just as ordinary. No loud arguments spilling into the street. No police visits. No signs of chaos. To the outside world, it was a place where people slept, ate dinner, and watched television like millions of others across America. Curtains were drawn at night, lights turned off at reasonable hours. The routine was comforting, predictable, normal. And yet, behind those walls, something was slowly unfolding. Something so deeply wrong that even now, years later, people struggle to talk about it without lowering their voices. What makes this story disturbing isn't sudden violence or a single explosive moment. It's the silence. The way nothing seemed off for so long. Investigators said that if they hadn't been called when they were, the truth might have stayed buried indefinitely. There were no screams reported, no neighbors complaining about noise. The house kept its secrets well. It began with small changes that were easy to dismiss. A person not seen as often as before. Lights left on in rooms that no one appeared to be using. Trash bins that stayed oddly light, week after week. When questions did arise, there were always explanations. Someone was sick. Someone was traveling. Someone preferred privacy. In a culture that values minding your own business, those answers were enough. Inside, however, the atmosphere had shifted. Rooms that once felt lived in became stagnant. Air stopped circulating. Doors stayed closed. Time itself seemed distorted, marked not by days and nights. Fear doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet compliance, the kind that grows when someone realizes escape is no longer simple. When authorities finally entered the house, they weren't expecting much. A welfare check, routine, and usually uneventful. The front door opened without resistance. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken furniture, no immediate evidence of a crime. At first glance, it looked like a place paused in the middle of everyday life. Shoes by the door, a half-used roll of paper towels on the kitchen counter, a couch with indents where people once sat. But as they moved deeper into the house, the feeling changed. Experienced officers later described it as an instinctive unease, the sense that something was wrong, even before they could explain why. The air felt heavy. The silence felt deliberate. One room, then another, revealed details that didn't fit together. A bedroom with no personal items. A bathroom that looked unused for far too long. Locks where locks didn't belong. And then there was the smell. Not overwhelming at first, but unmistakable once recognized. It lingered in corners, in closed spaces, in places no one expected to find it. That was the moment when the house stopped being normal. That was when the realization set in that whatever had happened here wasn't recent, and that it hadn't been accidental. The investigation that followed peeled back layers that were difficult to comprehend. What emerged wasn't just a crime, but a prolonged reality of control, isolation, and neglect. This wasn't something that happened in a moment of rage. It was sustained, planned, allowed to continue day after day because no one could see it and no one thought to look closely enough. Neighbors were interviewed, each one shocked in the same way. They seemed normal. "We never heard anything," they kept to themselves. These statements repeated over and over, not because people were lying, but because they were telling the truth as they experienced it. The house had done exactly what it needed to do. It had hidden in plain sight. What haunts people about this case isn't just the outcome, but the implications. How many other houses look just like that one? How many ordinary doors conceal extraordinary suffering? It forces an uncomfortable question. If something like this could happen there, why couldn't it happen anywhere? The people involved weren't monsters in the way movies portray them. No dramatic speeches, no obvious warning signs. Just flawed humans making choices, again and again, that stripped others of dignity and safety. That's harder to process than a story with a clear villain. It suggests that the line between normal life and unimaginable harm is thinner than we'd like to believe. As details became public, the story spread, but not loudly. It didn't dominate headlines for long. There were no sensational twists that kept it trending, and maybe that's why so many people never heard of it. It faded quietly, much like the house itself blending back into the neighborhood once everything was over. Today, the house still stands. Fresh paint, maybe new owners, perhaps a different mailbox. From the outside, nothing marks it as a place where something terrible occurred. Life continues around it. Cars park in the driveway, lights turn on at night, and people pass by unaware. But for those who know the story, the house will never be normal again. It represents a truth that's deeply unsettling, that horror doesn't always look like chaos, that danger doesn't always announce itself, and that sometimes the most disturbing stories are the ones that unfold quietly, behind closed doors, while the rest of the world goes on as usual. In the end, what happened inside that house wasn't just a crime. It was a reminder to pay attention, to question silence, to understand that normal is not a guarantee of safety, and that some of the darkest realities exist not in abandoned places or distant locations, but right in the middle of ordinary streets, hidden behind perfectly ordinary walls. Stories like this are easy to ignore, but impossible to forget. Like the video if you stayed till the end. Subscribe for more true stories hidden in plain sight. And if you have a thought, leave it in the comments.